Hey there, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I hope you're doing great and are ready to build something interesting and helpful with us. In this video, we're going to create a slider with three core technologies: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Before we jump right into building the project, at first I'm going to describe it. So as you can see, we have here a slider which plays automatically. The slider consists of 10 different slides, but at a glance you only see here just 5 of them. The remaining 5 slides are hidden and they appear in order. The slides feature the individuals, including their image, full name, position, and also you can see the LinkedIn icon at the top right corner of the slide. By default, the images of the persons are black and white, but once the slide reaches the center of the slider, then it becomes colored. The slides are nicely aligned up and down and have a hover effect. Once we hover over the slides, then they will move up slightly. Below you can see the controls, I mean left and right arrows, as well as numbers in the middle representing the current number of the slide, I mean the slide that is placed in the center of the slider, and also we have here the total number of slides. If I click the controls, then we will switch manually the slides, and once we start to switch the slides manually, then the progress bar will start to work. As you can see, it is filling. If we switch to the next slide, then the progress bar will start to fill again. After some amount of time, if we stop to click the controls, then the slider will continue to work automatically and the progress bar will stop working. Besides that, you can switch the slides manually by clicking the slides themselves, like so. As you can see, on click they are switching. If we click the first or the last slides, then they will move by 2 places nicely with smooth effects. Alright. The project is responsive to different screen sizes and devices. If I inspect the page, switch to the responsive mode and check the project for different screen sizes and devices, as you can see, I have here prepared different devices with a couple of various screen sizes. I have here 6 different breakpoints for desktop screens, and if we check the project for all of them, you will see that it is responsive and looks nice. Next, I have here 2 breakpoints for tablets. Let's check the project. So as you can see, everything looks good. And also I have here 3 mobile breakpoints. If I check the project for all of these 3 mobile screens, then you will see that it is responsive. Alright, so I think that's all about the features of our slider. Again, it will be created with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript from scratch. Before we dive deeper into building the project and writing the code, please take a moment to smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming tutorials. Alright, let's get started. So I have created a new folder on the desktop called Slider, in which I have another folder for the images. We store here all the images that we're going to use throughout this project. I'm going to open this folder in VS Code, and then I'm going to create our working files. We need index.html. Then I'm going to create style.css. And also I'm going to create one of the JavaScript files that we're going to use throughout this project, and it is called persons.js. Right now we're going to create any other JavaScript files. So I'm going to open index.html file and create the basic HTML structure. For that I'm going to use an emmet. Let's place here an exclamation mark and then hit tab or enter. So here we go. We have here the basic HTML tags. First of all, I'm going to change the title. Let's write here slider Then I'm going to link the CSS file. We need here link tag, in which I'm going to specify the path of the file. In this case, we just need to specify here the name of the file. It's going to be style.css. And also I'm going to link the JavaScript file that we have created. We need here source attribute, in which I'm going to specify the name of the file. It's going to be persons.js. And also we need to use here an attribute called differ. The differ attribute instructs the browser on how to handle the JavaScript file, in this case persons.js. So let me explain the behavior of this attribute. The browser downloads the script persons.js in parallel with parsing the HTML content. The browser waits for the HTML parsing to finish before executing the script. Once HTML parsing is complete, the downloaded scripts with differ are executed in the order they appear in the HTML code. So that's the way how differ attribute works. Next, I'm going to run the project to the browser. For that, I'm going to use live server. We can click here, open with live server, or we can click down below, go live. So as you can see, the project is live in the browser. Next, I'm going to place the browser and the editor side by side, like so, in order to make our working process more convenient. And after that, I'm going to bring in one more link. Throughout this project, we're going to use box icons. So I'm going to search for box icons. Let's visit this website here. In order to link box icons, in order to grab the CDN link, we can click usage. Then we need to import the CSS. And then I'm going to copy this CDN from here. Let's insert it in the head element. Alright, so I think we are ready to start to write the HTML markup. I'm going to insert here a div element, which is going to be the container. It will wrap the entire content of our project. Inside the container, I'm going to create slider wrapper. Then we need another div element, and it's going to be slider. Alright, so that's it about the HTML markup for now. So if we check the browser, you won't see here any elements because all the div elements are empty. Next, I'm going to open persons.js file, and I'm going to create a variable persons, which is going to be an array, and it will include a couple of different objects with several properties. We have to create persons with properties like name, position, image, index, and so on. Alright, so we need an array. Then I'm going to create an object in which I'm going to insert a couple of different properties. The first one is going to be index, and I'm going to make it 1. Then I'm going to create full name. It's going to be Joanna Sandoval. These are some random full names. So next we need position, and it's going to be SVP, head of product and design. Then I'm going to create image, and I'm going to specify here the path of the image. We need a folder called images, and then I'm going to select person1.jpg. Alright, so that's it about the first object. We're going to create 10 of them, so I'm going to duplicate this object 9 times, and then quickly change the details. So we need here index number 2. Now the name is going to be Molly Dixon. Next we need position, and it's going to be Chief Revenue Officer. As for the image, we need here person2. .jpg. Next we have index number 3. The name is going to be Alexis Murray. It's going to be head of commerce, and we need here person 3. Next we have index number 4. Then the name is going to be Lennon Sawyer. The position is going to be co-founder and president, and we need here person number 4. Next we have index number 5. The full name is going to be Juliana Wallace. It's going to be head of design, and we need here person number 5. Next we need index number 6. Actually, let's change the index number and the number of image simultaneously. We need here 6. As for the full name, it's going to be Maximo Barton. We need here Barton. As for the position, I'm going to insert here founder, president, and CEO. This guy is everything. Next we have index number 7. We need here 7. The name for the 7th person is going to be Abraham Curtis. It's going to be head of information. Next we have index number 8. It's going to be Hassan Herring. We need here person 8. As for the position, I'm going to insert here head of digital commerce platforms. Actually, you can download the source file and just copy and paste the array. It's up to you. Next we have index number 9, also person 9. The name is going to be Nick Brown. Next we have the position, and I'm going to insert here president, product, and business. And now we have to change the last objects. We need here index number 10 and person 10. As for the name of the person, is going to be Gary Montgomery. As for the position, I'm going to insert here president and co-founder. Alright, so that's it. The persons array is ready. We have here 10 different objects with 4 different properties. We have index, full name, position, and image. After that, I'm going to create a new variable, and it's going to be slider. I'm going to select this element using query selector method. Let's specify here the class name slider. Now we have to iterate over each object in the persons array using for each method. So we need here persons dot for each. Now inside the loop we have to use the destructuring assignment to extract the specific properties from the objects. So I'm going to insert here 4 different properties. I mean, we have to extract 4 properties from the objects. The first one is going to be index, then we have full name, next we have position, and also we need here image. So again, we used here a destructuring assignment syntax in order to extract properties from each object in the array and make them directly accessible within the loop. Now inside the loop we have to create and insert the HTML elements. For that, I'm going to use one of the methods called insert adjacent HTML. This method inserts the provided HTML string at a specific position relative to the slider element. As the first argument, I'm going to insert here before and. So here before and inserts the HTML right before the closing tag of the slider. Next, we have to define the HTML markup. So I'm going to open template literals. Then I'm going to open div tag, which will have class. It's going to be slide. Next, I'm going to add here another attribute, and it's going to be data index. Let's specify here the index. I'm going to grab the parameter index, which we have extracted here. After that, I'm going to add here title attribute with the value make active. So this attribute is used to provide advisory information about the element it's attached to. This information is typically displayed as a tooltip when the user hovers their mouse over the element. Alright, so that's it about the attributes of the div element. Next, I'm going to insert here, actually let's close this div tag. Then inside the div tag, I'm going to open iElement, which will have the following classes. We have to use one of the box icons. We need here bx, then bxl, LinkedIn, and then I'm going to add here an additional class icon. Let's close this tag. After iElement, I'm going to insert here an image. As you know, image is a self-closing tag, so we don't need here additional closing image tag. I'm going to insert here source attribute, in which we have to define the path of the image. So in this case, I'm going to use image, which we have extracted in the for each method. Also, I'm going to add here an alt attribute. Now we have to extract a specific part of the image path stored in the image property and assign it to the alt attribute of an image element. So I'm going to insert here image dot. Next, we have to split the image path string based on the forward slash. I mean this forward slash here. Since paths often use forward slashes as separators between directories and file names, splitting by this character helps isolate the desired portion. So I'm going to use split method, and as I said, we have to split the image path based on the forward slash. Next, we have to select the second item from the returned array. I mean split method returns an array. So in this case, we have to grab the second part, I mean the name of the image, with the extension. So we need here to indicate the index number 1. So again, in the context of the image path, splitting by slash would result in an array like images and person10.jpg. Then we have to further split the result of the first split, which is the file name portion, based on the period. We are doing this in order to separate the file name from its extension. We need to grab this part only, I mean the name without the extension. So we need here again split method, and we have to specify here the period, and we have to grab the first item. So we need here index number 0. Alright, so that's it about the alt attributes. Next, I'm going to insert here another element, and it's going to be h2 heading element. Let's close the h2 tag. So the heading element will have class attribute, and it's going to be full name. As for the content, I'm going to insert here full name, and then we need h3 heading element for the position. So I'm going to grab this code. Let's copy it and paste it here. We need h3. The class name is going to be position. As for the contents, I'm going to insert here position. Okay, so I think that's it about the HTML. Actually, let's quickly organize the code because it looks pretty ugly, I think. So we need here, actually, let's break this line. We need here closing I tag, then we have image. Let's place it on one line. So I'm going to break this line, also this line, and then we have the closing div tag. Let's move I element to the right side. Okay, I think the code looks organized. All right, so I think we have tiny issue with full name. We need here camel case. Okay, let's go to the browser. So as you can see, we have here all the objects, I mean the persons, with the I element linked in. Then we have image, the full name, and also the position. So everything looks pretty nice. Let's inspect the page. So if we check the elements tab, we will see here 10 elements, 10 div elements with class attribute slide. We have data index with index numbers, also title make active, and each slide includes I elements. Also we have here image, h2 heading element for full name, and h3 heading element for the position. Okay, so everything works perfectly. Let's go back to the VS Code. Now it's time to write some CSS. I'm going to open style.css file and move it to the right side. So first of all, I'm going to select all the elements because I'm going to create some default styles. In order to select every element, I'm going to use an asterisk. First of all, I'm going to get rid of default margin and padding. Let's set both of them to 0. Then I'm going to set box sizing to border box. It means that the width and height of the element will include padding and border. Next, I'm going to change the font family. So I'm going to use font called Jill Sans. If you don't have this font, you can download it for free, install and use it, or you can use any of the fonts you like. It's up to you. Alright, so that's it about the common styles. So they are applied to our elements. Next, I'm going to change the font size of the HTML element. So throughout this project, I'm going to use rem as the measurement unit. 1 rem is equal to 16 pixels by default because the font size of the HTML element is equal to 16 pixels. I'm going to convert 1 rem into 10 pixels. Therefore, we have to decrease the font size of the HTML element. So in order to make 1 rem equal to 10 pixels, we have to decrease the font size of the HTML and make it 62.5%. So in this case, 1 rem will be equal to 10 pixels. As you can see, the size of the elements became smaller because we changed the font size of the HTML element. Alright, so after that, I'm going to create a couple of different variables for the colors that we're going to use throughout this project. So we need here root, and then the first color is going to be white. I'm going to add here 3 Fs. Then I'm going to use gray, and it's going to be 2, 2, 2. As for the third color, I'm going to use light gray, and it's going to be 4, 4, 4. We need here pound sign. Alright, after that I'm going to take care of the container. Let's select it, and first of all I'm going to change the height. Let's set it to 100 viewport height. It means that the container will take up 100% of the height of the viewport. Next, I'm going to place the content in the center of the page. For that we can use a couple of different ways. In this case, I'm going to use CSS grid. We need display with the value grid. And then I'm going to use place items. with center. So as you can see, the content is placed in the center of the page. After that, I'm going to select the slider, and I'm going to define the width. It's going to be 100 viewport width. It means that the slider will take up 100% of the width of the viewport. And then I'm going to place the content of the slider side by side horizontally. For that, I'm going to use display flex. So as you can see, the slides are placed horizontally in a row. After that, I'm going to select the slide itself. Let's define width. It's going to be 20 viewport width. I'm in the 20% of the width of the viewport. And then I'm going to use a property called aspect ratio, and it's going to be 9/12. So an aspect ratio specifies the proportional relationship between the width and height of an element. Here it's set to 9/12. This means the width of the element will be 9 parts for every 12 parts of the height. So that's the way how the aspect ratio works in CSS. After that, I'm going to define the background color, and I'm going to use the variable with the white color, and then I'm going to set border to 0.1 rem. Then we need solid. As for the color, I'm going to use black. Okay, so as you can see, we have here border for each slide. After that, I'm going to take care of the images in the slides. So let's go ahead and select slide, followed by the image element. First of all, I'm going to define the width. It's going to be 85%. And then the aspect ratio is going to be 1. So in this case, the width and height of the image will be equal. Then I'm going to use object fit cover. So this property specifies how an image should be resized to fit within its container element. When we use cover, this instructs the browser to scale the image to cover the entire container element while maintaining the image's aspect ratio. If the image's aspect ratio doesn't perfectly match the container's aspect ratio, some parts of the image may be cropped to fit. After that, I'm going to use another property called object position, and it's going to be center. So this property determines the positioning of the image within its container element, considering the scaling applied by object fit. In this case, we use here center. This positions the image horizontally and vertically centered within the container element after considering any cropping due to object fit with the value cover. Alright, so that's the way how those properties work in CSS. So that's the way how the slides look, I mean the images. Next, I'm going to select slide with nth child selector, and I'm going to insert here n+6. Let's use display none. So this is a pseudo class selector that targets elements based on their position within their parent element. The n represents a counter starting from 0, and then we have +6. So it means that only 5 images will be visible here on the page. As for the rest of the 5 images, they will be hidden. Alright, let's go back to the VS Code, and I'm going to add here a couple of different styles. We need to use CSS flexbox. Let's use display flex. Then I'm going to place the elements, I mean the flex items, vertically in a column. For that, we have to change the direction, and it's going to be column. Then we need to create some space between the flex items using justify content space between. And also I'm going to align the items in the center horizontally. Okay, so that's the way how the slides look right now. Let's go ahead and make the borders rounded using border radius. It's going to be 2 rem. Then I'm going to create some space inside the slides using padding. Let's make it 2 rem. and then make the cursor point to. Alright, so I think the slides look pretty nice. Next, I'm going to select the even slides, I mean the second and the fourth slides. For that, I'm going to use pseudo class nth child. We need here slide followed by the nth child selector, and then I'm going to specify here even. I'm going to increase slightly the scale of the slides and also move them using translate y function. We should move them vertically. So we need here transform, then scale function, it's going to be 1.1, and then I'm going to use translate y with value 3 rem. So as you can see, the second and the fourth slides are placed a little bit down and the scale of those slides are increased. Let's do the same for the odd slides. I'm going to duplicate this code. So we need here odd. The scale will be same. I mean, we need here 1.1. As for the translate y function, I'm going to move these slides up. So we need here minus 3 rem. Okay, so I think now the slides are aligned quite nicely. Okay, so next I'm going to take care of the third slide. I'm going to customize it. It should cover the next slide. I mean, it should look this way. So let's go ahead and select. Actually, I'm going to duplicate this code, change the odd into 3. So in case of the third slide, I'm going to increase the scale. It's going to be 1.15. As for the translate y function, I'm going to increase the value, actually decrease the value. It's a -1. So we need here 6 rem. And also I'm going to place it on top of the fourth slide. For that, I'm going to use the index property with the value, let's say 10. It should be higher than 0. Okay, so now it covers the fourth slide. Let's go ahead and select the fourth slide. We have to cover the fifth one with the fourth slide. So I'm going to duplicate this code. Let's select fourth slide. We need here 4. Let's get rid of this property. We need the index with the value between 0 and 10. Let's say 5. Okay. So that's it about the alignment of the slides. Next I'm going to take care of the icons. So let's go ahead and select, actually we need here icon. I'm going to align it to the right side. For that I'm going to use property called align self, and we need here flex end. So as you can see, the icon is placed at the top right corner of the slide. Next I'm going to define the font size, and I'm going to use a function called clamp, which will take up 3 parameters. The first one is going to be 1 rem, then we will have here 1.5 CQI. As for the third parameter, it's going to be 1.5 rem. So the clamp function is used to define a range for the font size. It takes 3 arguments. The first one, minimum, specifies the minimum allowed font size. Then we have the preferred font size, 1.5 CQI. And the third one is the maximum allowed font size. So as the second argument we used here, CQI, this unit is a part of container query length units. If you hadn't heard of them until now, container queries are similar to media queries. However, instead of being based upon the size of the user's viewport, the styles can be changed according to the size of one of the element's parent containers. Now, in the same way that viewport height and viewport width are relative to the size of the viewport, container query units are relative to the size of their container. So CQI stands for container query inline. By default, it is 1% of the container's inline size. In this case, we have 1.5, which means that we have here 1.5% of the container's inline size. and it is the preferred value for the font size of the icon. Okay, so hopefully you understand how the CQI unit works as well as the clamp function. Okay, after that I'm going to add here border. It's going to be 0.1 rem solid. As the color I'm going to use light gray. Then I'm going to add some padding to the element. Let's set it to 0.5. And then I'm going to make the icon rounded, I mean the border rounded, using border radius. We need here border radius, and it's going to be 50%. Okay, so that's it about the icons. They're looking good. Next, I'm going to add some styles to the image. So I'm going to add here border radius. It's going to be 50%. We need rounded images. And then we have to make the images black and white. For that, I'm going to use filter. Then we need grayscale function, and the value is going to be 100%. Alright, so as you can see, the styles are applied to the images. I'm going to make the third image, the image in the center of the slider, colored like we have it in the finished version of the project. So for that, I'm going to select slide with nth child selector. It's going to be 3, and then we need image. Let's grab the filter property from here. I'm going to decrease the value of the grayscale function. Let's set it to 50%, and then use here transition with filter, and the duration is going to be 0.5 seconds. Okay, so the third image, the image in the center of the slider, now is colored. After that, I'm going to take care of the full name of the person. So let's go ahead and select full name. We need align self to be flex start. Then I'm going to use font size with again clamp function. We need here minimum value 1.8 rem. Then the next one is going to be the preferred value 2.3 CQI. As for the maximum value, it's going to be 3 rem. And finally, let's change the color. Let's use here variable gray. Okay, so the full name looks good. Next, we have to take care of the position. Let's go ahead and select position. So we need again align self, and it's going to be flex start. Next, I'm going to define the font size for the position, and again let's use clamp function. We need here the first value, the minimum value, it's going to be 1.2 rem. Then the preferred value will be 1.5 CQI, and finally we need here the maximum value, and it's going to be 1.8 rem. Alright, so that's it about the position. It looks nice. Next, I'm going to create some hover effect with the slides. So let's go ahead and find slide. I'm going to add here position, relative, and then I'm going to define the top position. It's going to be 0. So once we hover over the slides, I'm going to move them up slightly. So we need here hover effect. Then the top position is going to be -2 rem. And then let's use transition. We need here top 0.5 seconds. Okay, so we have here nice and cool hover effect. After that, I'm going to hide this scroll bar here. So I'm going to add to the container overflow X hidden. Alright, so the scroll bar is hidden, and after that I'm going to start to write some JavaScript. Let's go back to the VS Code, and Actually, I'm going to create a new file here, and it's going to be app.js. Then I'm going to move this file here on the left side. Let's open index.html file. I'm going to change the name of the file, and it's going to be app.js. We no longer need here persons.js because we're going to export the content from the persons.js file. So let's add here type module. This attribute specifies that the script should be treated as a JavaScript module. Modules are a way to organize JavaScript code, allowing for better code organization, encapsulation, and reuse. When a script is marked as a module, it runs in its own scope, not in the global scope of the document. It also allows the use of import and export statements for module dependencies. So I'm going to open persons.js and down below create new variable. It's going to be elements. Then I'm going to extract the variables using destructuring. We need here slider, this element, and also we need slides. We're going to grab slides not as the node list but an array. So we need here array followed by the spread operator, and I'm going to select all the slides using document.query selector all method, and we have to specify here the class name, and it's going to be slide. Alright, so after that we need to export elements from this file. So we need here export default elements. This line exports the elements object as the default export of the module. It allows other modules to import the elements object using the import statement. So we have to open up the JS file and import the elements from persons.js file. We need here import statement. Then we need to specify the name of the variable, the object. It's going to be elements. Then we need from, and we have to specify here persons.js. Next, I'm going to extract the slider and the slides from the elements. As you remember, we have here slider and the slides inside the elements object, so we have to grab them, extract them. So I'm going to use here destructuring. We need curly braces and then slider and slides, and we have to grab them from the elements object. So now we have access on slider and the slides from the persons.js file. Alright, so now I'm going to create a new function, and it's going to be right move. Let's add here an arrow function. So we have to remove the first child element of the slider element and assign it to a variable named first slide. So we need to create new variable first slide. And as I said, we have to remove the first slide, first child element of the slider, and assign it to a variable first slide. So we need here slider dot remove child, and I'm going to insert here slider dot first element child. Slider dot first element child allows us to access the first child element. Next, we have to append the first slide element to the slider. So we need to add here slider dot append, and we have to specify here the variable first slide. So this effectively moves the first slide to the end of the slider, creating a right move effect. Append is a method that adds a node or a DOM string to the end of the list of children of a specified parent node. So in summary, the right move function removes the first child element of a specified slider element and appends it to the end of the slider, effectively shifting the slides to the right. In the same way, we have to create another function, and it's going to be left move. So we need left move. It's going to be an arrow function. We have to remove the last child element of the slider element and assign it to a variable with the name last slide. So we need here last slide, and it's going to be equal to slider dot remove child, and we have to specify here slider dot last element child. So in this case, slider dot last element child allows us to access its last child element. After that, I'm going to insert here slide followed by the insert before method. I'm going to insert here two different arguments. The first one is going to be last slide, the variable that we create here. As for the second argument, it's going to be slider dot first child. So let me explain what this code does. This line inserts the last slide element before the first child element of the slider. This effectively moves the last slide to the beginning of the slider, creating a left move effect. Insert before is a method that inserts a node before the specified child node in the parent node's child list. So in summary, the left move function removes the last child element of a slider and inserts it before the first child element of the slider, effectively shifting the slides to the left. Alright, so now we have to iterate over slides using for each method. So we need slides, not for each. And I'm going to insert here a callback function with the parameter slide. Next, I'm going to add an event listener to the slide with click event. So we need here add event listener method, and we have to specify here the event as click. Also, we need here a callback function which will be executed once we click the slides. So now I'm going to insert here the following. I'm going to create a new variable, and it's going to be slide index. So we have to define the slide index in the following way. Actually, we need here index. I'm going to use an array, then the spread operator. We need slides dot children. Then I'm going to use one of the array helper methods called index of, and I'm going to insert here slide. So this line calculates the index of the clicked slide within its parent element slider. It first converts the slider children node list into an array using the spread operator. Then it uses the index of method to find the index of the clicked slide within the array of children. This index represents the position of the clicked slide among the siblings. So in order to make it clear, I'm going to run to the console slide index, then go to the browser and inspect the page. Actually, I'm going to attach this window to the page like so. Let's open console. If I click, actually slides.children is not iterable. Let's check the code. So we have here slides.children, and actually we need slider, not slides. Now the code should work. As you can see, we have here 4 because I clicked the fourth, then the third slides, then we have 2, 1 and 0. As you remember, index numbers are 0 based, that's why we get here 0 when we click the first slide. So everything works fine. Now we're getting here the index numbers. Let's go back to the VS Code. So now it's time to use switch statements. Actually, switch statement in JavaScript is used to evaluate an expression against multiple cases and execute different blocks of code based on the matched case. It provides a cleaner and more concise way to handle multiple conditional branches compared to using multiple if statements. So right after console, I'm going to use switch statement. We need here slide index as the parameter. So as I said, we have to define multiple cases. The first case is going to be 0. So it means that if slide index is equal to 0, then we have to execute the block of code. We need here colon, and then I'm going to run left move function, but I'm going to run it twice. So if slide index is equal to 0, the code will execute left move twice. This implies that when the first slide is clicked, it moves 2 slides to the left. After that, I'm going to use break. In a switch statement, when a case is matched, the corresponding block of code is executed. In this case, left move is executed twice. After executing the block without a break statement, JavaScript will continue executing the code that follows the matched case, potentially entering the code of the next case as well. So we have to break the executing of the code. Next, I'm going to define another case, and it's going to be 1. So if slide index, actually we need here colon. So if slide index is equal to 1, then we should execute left move once. This implies that when the second slide is clicked, it moves 1 slide to the left. So we need here left move once. And then I'm going to add again break. After that, I'm going to define another case, and it's going to be case 3. So if slide index is equal to 3, the code will execute right move function. This implies that when the fourth slide is clicked, it moves 1 slide to the right. So we need here right move once. Then we need again break. And now we have to define the fourth case. When slide index is equal to 4. In this case, we need right move twice, like we did it in the case of the 0. So we need here right move twice. So if slide index is equal to 4, the code will execute the right move twice. This implies that when the fifth slide is clicked, it moves 2 slides to the right. Okay, then we need again break. And after that, I'm going to use default case. So if slide index does not match any of the specified cases, no action is taken. If none of the case values match the expression and there is a default case, the code within the default block will be executed. Now I'm going to add here break. Alright, so that's it about our switch statement. Now I'm going to go to the browser and click the slides. So as you can see, it works fine. Next, I'm going to make this movement a little bit smoother. I'm going to add some fade effect to the slider. So for that, I'm going to insert here the following. We need slider dot children, and we have to select the last item. Actually, we need here square brackets. So we need 4. It's the 5th slide. It means that we're selecting the 5th slide in the slider. I'm going to add new class to the 5th slide, and we need here add method. The class is going to be fade in. We will use this class in CSS to define the styles. Next, I'm going to find the left move function, and I'm going to add here last slide dot class list dot add, and then we need fade in. Alright, so once we added new classes to the first and the last slides, next I'm going to define some styles in the CSS. I'm going to select fade in. Actually, we need here fade in, and I'm going to add to it animation property. So I'm going to add here the values at first, and then we'll create the CSS keyframes where we have to define the styles which will be applied to the elements during the animation. So I'm going to add here the name of the animation. It's going to be first slide anim. Then we need duration 0.5 seconds. And now I'm going to create CSS keyframes. We need the name first slide anim. So we will have different steps. At 0%, at the starting point of the animation, the width is going to be 0. Also, we need opacity to be 0. Then at 60%, we need opacity 0. And finally, at 100%, when the animation ends, we need width to be 20, viewport width, and opacity is going to be 1. Okay, so let's check the browser. Now click. As you can see, it works. Now if we click on the right side, I mean those slides, it doesn't work quite good. So let's go ahead and fix that problem. Actually, let's close this tab. Now I'm going to add in the right move function the following. We need slider dot style, and we have to use justify content property. It's going to be equal to flex end. And then in the left move function, we need the same code, but the value is going to be flex start. Okay, so now the problem should be fixed. Let's check. Okay, so as you can see, the slider works fine. Actually, when we click the second and the fourth slides, then everything works fine. But when we click the first and last slides, then 2 slides are hiding and then appearing, and I think that doesn't look quite good. So we have to fix that problem. Let's go back to the VS Code. As you remember, when we used switch statement, in case of 0 and in case of 4, we use left move twice and right move twice. So I'm going to add here set timeout function. Then I'm going to actually, let's add here parentheses. Then we need a callback function, and I'm going to call left move inside the set timeout function with the interval, I mean the timeout, 500 milliseconds. And I'm going to do the same for the right move here. Let's insert the code and change left move into right move. Okay, let's go to the browser. Now, if I click the first and last slides, everything will work fine. I'm going to make the effect slightly smoother, and for that I'm going to add transition here. We have top 0.5 seconds, and I'm going to add here transform 0.5 seconds, and we need here little delay time 0.2 seconds. Let's go back to the browser. So now I think we have much nicer effect. Okay, so everything works fine so far. Next, I'm going to take care of the controls. I mean, those controls here. So let's go back to the VS Code and open HTML file. I'm going to add here HTML markup. Let's open div tag with the class controls. Then we need link elements with the class name left control. So inside the link element, I'm going to insert box icon. We need I element with the class is bx, then bx left arrow, alt, actually we need here dash, and then alt. Then I'm going to add after link element div, which is going to be progress. Inside the progress, I'm going to insert span element, and the content is going to be 3. And then we need again span element with dash and 10. After that, I'm going to insert here an empty div element, and then let's grab the link element. We need another arrow. It's got actually, we need the arrow outside of the progress. Let's add here arrow. We need right control and right arrow. Alright, so that's it about the HTML markup. Let's check the results. So we have here arrows and the span elements. Let's go ahead and customize those newly created HTML elements. Let's select controls. I'm going to use CSS flexbox. We need display flex. Then justify content center. We're going to place the content in the center horizontally. So as you can see, the controls are placed in the center of the page. Next, I'm going to select link elements. So I mean the arrows. Let's select controls followed by the A element. First of all, I'm going to define the font size. It's going to be 3 rem. Then change the color. Let's use here variable light gray, this one. Then I'm going to use border. It's going to be 0.1 rem solid, and as the color I'm going to use again light gray. Let's check the browser. So now we have here controls with borders. I'm going to place them in the center. For that, let's use CSS grid. We need display grid, and then place items center, and also actually we need here center and not the calc function. And finally, I'm going to get rid of default text decoration. Let's set it to none. Alright, now I'm going to create a hover effect. Let's go ahead and select Controls A with hover. On hover, I'm going to change the color and the background color. So the background color is going to be light gray. As for the color, I'm going to make it white. Let's add transition here for smoother effect. We need background color. The duration is going to be 0.3 seconds, and then we need color with the same duration. Okay, so as you can see, the hover effect works fine. Next, we have to take care of the progress. So let's select wrapper, progress. I'm going to define width and height. The width is going to be 10 rem. Then I'm going to define the height. Let's make it 3 rem. Also, we need border with the values 0.2 rem, solid, and the color is going to be light gray. Then I'm going to make the progress rounded using border radius with the value 2 rem. Let's check the browser. So as you can see, the styles are applied to the progress. Next, I'm going to place the content in the center. For that, I'm going to use flexbox. Actually, we need here display flex, then justify content center and align items center. So as you can see, the content is placed in the center. Next, I'm going to increase the font size. Let's set it to 1.5 rem. Then we need some space between the columns, so I'm going to use column gap. Let's set it to 0.5 rem. And finally, I'm going to change the color. Let's use variable grade. Alright, so that's it about the progress, I mean the wrapper div elements. As you can see, we need some space between the progress and the controls. So I'm going to add to the controls column gap. It's going to be 10 rem. Then I'm going to set position to relative and move the elements a little bit down. Let's set bottom position to -10. I mean -10 rem. Okay, so the controls look pretty nice. Next, I'm going to customize the span elements. So let's go ahead and select progress followed by the span element. Let's increase the font weight. It's going to be 600. Alright, after that, I'm going to customize the developments. I'm in this development here. We have created an empty development. So let's go ahead and select progress followed by the development. I'm going to set position to absolute. Next, we need position relative for the progress because it is a parent element and we have to position development according to the parent element. So we need here position relative. And then I'm going to define here the left position. It's going to be 0. Then the width and height will be 100%. I mean both of them. After that, I'm going to change the background color. And it's going to be AC, AC, AC. Let's check the browser. So, as you can see, we have here the developments. Actually, I'm going to make it rounded. Let's add here border radius. Make it 2 rem. So now the span elements are not visible, and in order to fix that, I'm going to use the index property. So I'm going to add here the index with some higher value than 0. Let's say 5. Okay, so now these span elements are visible. After that, I'm going to set the width of the development to 0. So now it's no longer visible. And then we have to write some JavaScript. Let's open app.js file. So now it's time to make our slider work automatically. For that, I'm going to create new variable and it's going to be interval. Now we have to create a function that will set up a timer using the setInterval function to trigger the right move function at regular intervals. So I'm going to create here function and I'm going to call it interval fn, I mean function. It should be equal to an arrow function. Then I'm going to make interval variable equal to setInterval function. This is a built-in function in JavaScript which allows us to execute the function with some intervals. So we have to pass here a callback function. So inside the setInterval function, we have to pass 2 arguments. The first one is an arrow function, which will be executed with some intervals. As for the second argument, it's going to be the interval itself, I mean the amount of time, and it is expressed in milliseconds. So in our case, I'm going to make the second argument equal to 5000 milliseconds. It is equal to 5 seconds. So now I'm going to call the right move function inside the setInterval function. Then we have to call the interval fn function in order to execute this code. So we need here interval fn. So the purpose of the interval fn function is to automate the movement of slides in the slider at regular intervals. So let's check the browser. Now, as you can see, the slider is working. After each 5 seconds, the slides are changing, they're moving. But if I start to click the slides, then the slider will mess up. It happens because once we click the slides, we have to stop playing the slider automatically. In order to fix the problem, we have to clear the interval timer based on some Boolean parameter. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to create new function, and it's going to be timeout fn. So we need to pass here an arrow function, and as I said, we have to run this function based on some Boolean statement. So we have to pass here an argument, actually the parameter bool. Then we have to use if statements, in which we have to check if Boolean is true or not. If it is true, then we have to clear interval. We have to pass here the variable interval. The variable stores the setInterval function. So once we click the slides, then we should stop playing the slider automatically. So this function takes a single parameter bool, which is a Boolean value. If bool is true, indicating that a specific condition is met, the interval timer set by interval fn function is cleared using clearInterval method. If Boolean is false or not provided, then no action is taken. So now we have to call this function in right move and left move functions. Let's add here timeout fn, and I'm going to pass here argument bool val, which then we're going to use here as the parameters bool val, and by default we have to set them to true. So let me explain what's going on here. The bool val parameter is used in the right move and left move functions when they call timeout fn function. These functions pass the bool val parameter to timeout function to indicate whether the interval timer should be cleared after the slide movement. By default, bool val is set to true in both right move and left move functions. This means that by default, after each slide movement, the interval timer will be cleared. However, the bool val parameter allows for flexibility. If for some reason there is a scenario where you don't want to clear the interval timer after a slide movement, you can call right move or left move functions, effectively passing false as the Boolean value. This prevents the interval timer from being cleared. In summary, the timeout fn function's role is to clear the interval timer set by interval fn based on a Boolean parameter bool. The bool val parameter in right move and left move functions is used to control whether the interval timer should be cleared after a slide movement. It adds flexibility to the code and allows us to customize the behavior based on different scenarios. Alright, so now I'm going to add here an argument false by default for the right move function. Then go to the browser. Now, as you can see, the slider works automatically, but if I click any of the slides, then it will stop playing automatically. Alright, so now the next thing that we have to do is to make slider work automatically once we click the slide. I mean, at the beginning, the slider works automatically. Then if I click, it stops working automatically, but we need to continue the slider work automatically. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to create a new variable, and it's going to be timeout. Then inside the timeout function, I'm going to insert timeout, and I'm going to use one of the built-in JavaScript methods called setTimeout, which allows us to execute the function after some amount of time. So we need setTimeout. Then we have to insert here a callback function, which will be executed after some amount of time. the amount of time is going to be 5000 milliseconds. And now we have to call the function interval fn. Alright, let's go to the browser. So now, as you can see, the slider works automatically. Then, if I click once the slider, it will stop, but after some amount of time, it will continue working automatically. As you can see, it continues working automatically. But if I click a couple of times to different slides, then the slider should mess up. So, as you can see, it's messed up. It happens because we have to clear the timeouts which we have just created. So, as you can see, it's completely messed up. Let's go back to the VS Code. Now, as I said, we have to clear the timeout because on each click we have to clear the old timeout and then set the new one. So I'm going to add here clear timeout, and we have to pass here the variable timeout. Alright, let's go to the browser. So as you can see, the slider works automatically. Then if I click, it will stop working, but after some amount of time it will continue working automatically. So as you can see, it works automatically. If I click a couple of times like we did it in the previous case, then the slider will work without any problems. Okay, so everything's good. Now we have to take care of the progress. Let's go back to the VS Code, and I'm going to open persons.js file. Then inside the elements object, I'm going to add here progress. Let's go ahead and select progress using query selector method. We need to specify here the class name progress. Then I'm going to go back to the app.js file, and I'm going to add here progress. We have to extract it from the progress file. Alright, next I'm going to create new variable. It's going to be progress int, progress interval, and then I'm going to create a new function. Let's add here new function. Let's call it progress fn. It should be equal to an arrow function. Before we insert here the block of code, I'm going to add a parameter to the progress fn function, and it's going to be index plus. This parameter represents the amount by which the progress bar should increase in each step of the animation. Next, we have to initialize a local variable which will track the current width of the progress bar. So inside the function, I'm going to declare variable I, and it's going to be equal to 10. After that, we have to set up a repeating interval using setInterval function. So we need to insert here progress int equal to setInterval. And we have to pass here a callback function. As for the amount of time, I'm going to insert here 1000 milliseconds. It is equal to 1 second. So inside the setInterval function, we have to define the width. We need here progress dot last element child. Then we have to use style property followed by the width. So now we have to increase the width of the progress bar by index plus % in each interval. The width will be updated by modifying the width style property of the last child element of the progress element. So we have to open template literals, then we need the following. So I, which is equal to 10, then we need plus equals, I mean the increment, and then we need index plus. And finally, at the end of this expression, we need percentage sign. So we have to increase the width of the progress by 10 after each interval. After that, we have to check if the progress bar has reached 100% of the width. So we have to use an if statement in which we have to check if I is equal to 110. If this condition is true, then we have to reset the variable I and make it 0. So we need I equal to 0. And also we have to clear the interval. I'm going to insert here progress int. And after that, we have to define the width again. So I'm going to grab this code. And we have to make width equal to I, which is going to be 0. So now we have to clear the interval in the timeout function. So once we click the slide, we have to clear the interval for the progress interval as well. We need clear interval, and we have to pass here progress int. And lastly, we have to call the progress fn function. Let's add here progress fn, and the argument is going to be 10 because we're going to increase the width of the progress bar by 10 on each interval. Alright, so let's go to the browser and click the slide. As you can see, the progress bar is increasing. Actually, we have here a couple of issues. I used with the development border radius, and actually I think that it doesn't look good, so instead of border radius I'm going to use overflow hidden. It will give us much better effect. Let's use overflow hidden. And besides that, I'm going to add here transition in order to make the effect smoother. We need width. The duration is going to be 1 second, and also we need linear. Now let's check the results. Click the slide. As you can see, we have here much better results. Alright, after that we have to take care of the numbers of the slides. Right now we have just 3. It doesn't matter if we click and move the slides, it's always 3 because we have hard-coded 3 in the index.html file. Let's go ahead and fix that problem. I'm going to find, actually we need up.js file. So we need timeout fn function. And here I'm going to add the following. We need progress followed by the first element child. And then we need to use text content property. It should be equal to slider dot children. We need to access to the third slide in the slider. So therefore we have to use here index number 2. Then we need to access to the data set. We need here data set and then index. So I'm going to inspect the page and show that each slide has data index attribute with index numbers. So we're going to use those index numbers. If we save this code and go to the browser, then once the slides move, then the index number will change, and the same will happen if I click the slides. Okay, so we have here the second part, 10. Actually, we can leave this as it is, but I'm going to define it dynamically. So for that, I'm going to add here progress dot children. Then we have to select the second child, and then we need text content. So it should be equal to template literals. Then we need dash space, and then we have to define the number of the slides. For that we need here slider.children.length. Now we have defined the number of slides dynamically. Alright, so everything looks and works perfectly. Next we have to take care of the controls. They are not working right now. So I'm going to go back to the VS Code, then at the end of the code I'm going to select left control. Let's use query selector method and select left control. After that I'm going to add an event listener to the left control with click event, and then I'm going to call here function left move. In the same way I'm going to take care of the right control. We need here the right control, then the class name is going to be right control, and also we need here right move. Actually, we need to change this variable here as well. Okay, let's go to the browser and check if the controls work. So as you can see, everything works perfectly. Alright, so actually we are done with the project. Everything works fine. As you can see, the progress bar is filling up. Once it fills, then the slider starts working automatically, and we no longer have here the progress bar. Once we click the slides, then the progress bar will continue working. Okay, so we are done with the project. Next we have to make the project responsive to different screen sizes. Let's inspect the page and switch to the, actually I'm going to separate the windows. So let's switch to the responsive mode. The project was built for extra large screen size. We need here 1920 pixels of width and 1080 pixels of height. So I'm going to decrease the size of the screen. Actually, I have here prepared different screen sizes and devices. So for desktop screens, the project looks good. Let's check tablet. So I'm going to make some changes for tablets. Let's go ahead and insert here CSS media queries. I'm going to specify the screen size as 950 pixels. So on that breakpoint, I'm going to change the aspect ratio of the slide. So we need here slide, and the aspect ratio is going to be 9/16. Let's check the browser. So now I think the project looks better. Next, I'm going to check the project for smaller screen sizes. I mean for the mobile phones. Let's set it to 100%. So I'm going to define the next breakpoint, and I think it's going to be, let's duplicate this code. It's going to be 650 pixels. On that breakpoint, I'm going to select slider and set width to 45 rem. Also, I'm going to select the first slide using nth child selector. And I'm going to hide the first slide. Let's set display to none. Then I'm going to select slide with nth child selector. And in this case, I'm going to use n plus 5. As you remember, we had n plus 6. So now, in the responsive mode, for the smaller screen sizes, I'm going to use n plus 5. And I'm going to set display to none. Let's check the browser. So now only 3 slides are visible. I'm going to change the width of the slide. Let's select slide and set width to 15 rem. And now I'm going to decrease the space between the controls. I'm going to select controls. And I'm going to set column gap to 5 rem. Alright, so I think everything looks good. Next, I'm going to select smaller screen size for the mobile phones. Let's select the first, mobile 1, I mean. Mobile 3, it is the smallest screen size. Okay, let's go ahead and create new CSS media query. The max width is going to be 550 pixels. And on that breakpoint, I'm going to decrease the font size of the HTML element. Let's set font size to 50%. It will decrease the size of all the elements. Okay, so now I think everything looks good. And we can say that our project is responsive for different screen sizes and devices. And finally, with the project, we are done. I hope that you enjoyed the project and learned lots of things. If you like this video, please thumbs up, comment below, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss out our upcoming tutorials. Alright, see you next time.